4:30, we'll call the meeting to the Whitman Building Committee to order, our middle school building committee. Mr. Curran. As always, I'd like to remind everyone this meeting's being recorded for later broadcast. We're not live, correct? You're recorded for later broadcast. As we start all meetings, if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up on the agenda is the meeting minutes from our last meeting. I don't have the date off the top of my head. It's not here.
November 15th.
November 15th.
Motion to make an amendment.
Okay, have a motion to amend the meeting minutes.
Second.
And a second. All in favor of amending?
Can I tell you what the amendment is?
Well, doesn't the motion have to? And then you give the amendment, and then we would approve them as an.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I would think.
Yes, yeah, right.
So, all in favor of amending the minutes as Mr. Galvin will be presenting? Aye. Oh, roll call vote. Rich?
Rich Falcon, yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Chris?
You're asking me to
Vote on,
what do you mean?
vote on the affirmative to amend the meeting minutes, and they will be presented in a moment. Okay, so we have a motion passed to amend the meeting minutes, and they'll be amended to Mr. Galvin, your
So
amendment.
on page 3, halfway down, it starts off, the paragraph starts off with Mr. Galvin. In the fourth line, it says, we're talking about cost, and it would translate to a $1.5 million addition. It's 1/2. That slash should not be there. It's a $12 million difference. So there's a little bit of a difference in
What
what's
was
in
that?
it.
Okay, so the motion is to amend, okay, so
The
the
motion
amendment.
is to amend where it says $500,000 difference to $12 million. On the fourth line.
It's a typo. It's typo,
Yeah.
so it's
Yep.
been noted. Okay, all in favor of amending the minutes to read 12 million as opposed to a $500,000 in the fourth line on page 3? Great. Rich?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
Yes,
Okay, so now they're amended. Now we'd entertain a motion to amend, to approve the minutes as amended.
So move.
We have George Farrell with the first, Jeff with the second. Okay, we'll start that side, Brandon, so switch this. George?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
abstain?
Okay, so get that, John, Mr. Bates?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Minute meeting's done. OPM report, Mr. Bates.
Good evening, everyone. In your packet, you should have the OPM report for the month of November 2022. I have no new encumbrances to report on the project as of this report. I will just point out that to date, 142 and change thousand has been submitted for reimbursement to the MSBA. We are anticipating a reimbursement of 82,000 and change, and that is because we have a reimbursement rate as stated in your feasibility agreement of 57.74%. And any questions regarding the budget versus actuals report? I'll just note that we are continuing to be on budget in terms of the invoices and the burn rate, as we like to call it. So feasibility study, we are on track financially. And then in terms of schedule, I'll just quickly note that we all know that we're marching towards the PSR delivery to the MSBA on March 2nd. I believe the AI3 intends to to go deeper into the mechanics of how we get to March 2nd in their report, so I'll defer to them. Unless there's any discussion, any questions about the OPM report, I could move on to OPM item number 2, which is project information webpage. So we are working with the district staff on making a more robust informational page. It's going to be housed on the existing district web infrastructure because we think that's the best way for people to know where to reach it. We're still debating on whether it's going to be a link to a separate page that Colliers maintains and designs, or it might just be a collaborative effort between the district office and Colliers as far as reformatting and redesigning the existing page. But either way, it's going to have a more robust list of information, a list of milestones, upcoming meeting dates, all the relevant meeting materials. So that is our goal. I expect it probably could go live this week. It even had gone live last week. I think one of the district staff had gotten sick and we lost a couple of days of development time, but that's my report on that. Any questions?
Quick question. The commitment as to posting timely new information after meetings or forums, is 12 to 24 hours reasonable?
Yeah, and I think what we should, or what I should commit to doing is, how about a weekly update of all relevant materials? And I think this is going to probably evolve as we go forward to see what frequency makes the most sense. But yeah, I think that, like, for example, after tonight's meeting, there's no reason why we couldn't have all the relevant materials uploaded and ready 24 hours after the meeting. So.
Anyone else, any other questions? Just to reiterate, there'll be 2 ways to navigate to the site.
Well, I think what I'm trying to, and we actually had a discussion about this just prior to the meeting upstairs about the best way to do it, whether it's a link on the existing page that brings you to a very specific project page, or whether it's just reformatting the existing page to look.
Who's going to be updating the page?
Right. Well, I think it depends on which way we go, because to link to our individual page, then Colliers maintain that page, we maintain a link. For us to put it on the page is that Colliers works directly with our staff to put it on the page. Right now, we have some movement going on in the personnel who do the website for us that maintains it for the district. So what we're trying to figure out is that something that either the person who's moving a position can still handle, or should we put it to one of our stipended positions for websites? So that's what we're working on. Because if it's a link, the link stays, Colliers does it. If it's something that's just post a meeting, can you please upload this the next morning, and the new person's comfortable doing that, then that's what we do also.
I was on the understanding that the OPM was going to be responsible when we did our interviews and talked that the OPM was going to be responsible for the webpage. So spending district dollars on maintaining the website, to me, is wrong, because it was from the beginning, that was one of the questions that we asked, and it was an important answer. And for the district to be doing it, I think you put a link on it, Colliers handles it, and the district forgets about it. Just make sure the link stays.
It's fine by Colliers. We want to do whatever works best. The reason we want to put it on the existing infrastructure is just because that's where people know to go. And that's what we've done in the past. And, we could create something from scratch. We just would worry that people wouldn't find it.
Well, and that's where it leads me back to there would be 2 ways to access it. One, there would be a link. That link could be to anything from the district page. I mean, that could go out to, the IRS if you want to put a link to the IRS, so to speak. So that's just a hyperlink. That's easy enough. And then the actual landing site, the page itself, how it's associated, if there's an index, if it still works that way. It's been a long time since I played with that.
Right.
So you could type in www.Whitman Middle School, MS, buildingproject.com. Go right to the page, or, as I said, when you're at the district page, it goes to that same page.
Yeah, I mean, it would be in the same fashion that a specific teacher has a link from the WHRSD website, and it goes right there, so you can access it. It's just a Google site probably that just links. So we'd embed the link for more detailed information on the school building project, please click here.
Yeah.
And then it could be uploaded and maintained by whatever third party this
Yeah.
is called.
I think my preference would be, I prefer to maintain it. I would like to do that.
And also, what I'd like is get with Ryan perhaps after the meeting. They issue, I think it's automatic if you subscribe to WHCA, you get the little notification when meetings have been posted. Things have been posted onto theirs with the YouTube link. Make sure we have all of those up as well. So it would have the meeting dates, it would have, the appropriate, presentations,
Brian, do you still do playlists for each group meeting?
Yeah, there's a link for this specific meeting.
Yeah, so you can just make a link to the playlist and it's going to be there.
Yeah, they have that.
Anything, it automatically updates once they put it up there. Because there's a playlist of just for the school meetings on the WHCA.
Yeah, you know better than me for that, so that works.
We'll work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next is the lease discussion. This is a very quick update. As of this afternoon, I've been given a couple of potential meeting times to meet with the leadership of the MSBA and the leadership of the town. And it looks like it's going to be on Tuesday morning. So I don't have an update beyond that. I regret that it's taken this long. It took several reminders, but I finally did get some dates. So happy to discuss further if the committee wants. But
I think that's, as long as everyone knows what's happening with it. Next Tuesday, obviously, we should issue something to the committee after the meeting, as an update as well.
Okay.
Go from there. And then perhaps, I don't know if we've reported out, like if we have our website up and running, a synopsis without it being spoken about in open session first. I want
A synopsis of the meeting?
Yeah.
It's entirely up to you. You could certainly do that.
What's the feeling of this committee? So the town and MSBA, they have the discussion and they have a little recap. Do we want to discuss that in our next meeting first? Or do we want to put the recap, straight out there where if we all are getting phone calls about it, we may not be able to answer because we won't know.
I don't think it's going to be resolved necessarily either, so.
I don't expect it's going to be resolved either.
So
I don't know.
we should wait until it's finally resolved before we post anything publicly, but I think we should all get an email with kind of an update from John on where we saw the meeting.
Yeah, at the very least, an email to the committee to know what happened.
We'll make sure it's an agenda item for our first meeting in January.
Okay. All right, well, if there's nothing else on that topic, that concludes the OPM section of the agenda. With that, I can turn it over to AI3.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were starting. Just pulling out.
Good to go? You
Good
ready?
to go.
All right.
Go ahead.
Julie, take it away.
Sure. So we have a short agenda, and as a result, low number of slides, but we could certainly fill that time as much as the committee wants or not. We have this slide first that we presented before, just a rundown of some of the upcoming actions and votes in a chart form, and then we just wanted to emphasize some of those dates. So as John mentioned, we know we're striving for that March 2nd PSR submission date, and we've highlighted January 24th here as an important building committee meeting. It's both the sort of latest we could hold a sort of vote on the preferred option and the earliest we could hold that vote. And we can run through why what those critical factors that are influencing that are. We're proposing January 24th only because it's a Tuesday, but really any sort of day during that week, maybe if there's any conflict with that, but that's open for discussion tonight. Two meetings that will have to come after January 24th, but before the March 2nd submission would be a school committee approval of the final educational program, and so we would propose that would be the following week or two of the January 24th. We're showing that as February 8th on this slide. And then subsequent to that, February 14th, we would propose that this committee then approve submission of the PSR for the MSBA. And of course, we're backtracking a little bit because of that vacation week, the last week of February. So then the week prior to January 24th, this is sort of what's influencing pushing that date to the third week in January. January 19th, we would be looking to submit cost estimates to the building committee. So we should be able to have those estimates in our hands. January 17th is what we would have targeted with our cost estimators, and that would give us a couple days to just confirm the accuracy of those cost estimates before we distribute them to the committee and provide you enough time to review those prior to making sort of that preferred schematic option decision on the 24th.
And the 19th is not a meeting, you're just going to email us.
That's right, yep. Just to clarify, the January 24th would be the only building committee meeting in any of this list of dates that we would want to identify. December 21st, that's when we are planning on submitting all of the information that we've come up with so far to our cost estimators. So we'll have the 5 options that we've agreed upon in this building committee, and we will get those re-estimated in a similar process to what we did with the PDP report. And so those will just continue to get refined and refined. We're also planning to submit a final evaluation matrix to the committee, and we are looking tonight just to, again, distribute that and get any feedback on it. Tonight being December 13th, that will give us a week to, again, make any changes or finalize that evaluation matrix before we provide that to the building committee, and then we're looking to utilize that in the January 24th meeting as a basis for coming up with that vote or that decision for the preferred option. Any questions on the dates or conflicts with sort of what we've outlined?
On the matrix, it was emailed out to the committee. Has everyone had a chance to review it? And did anyone have any comments, suggestions, concerns on any of the phrasing or the way the questions are? Or the 1, 2, 3, the scoring portion?
Yeah, we have submitted this twice before, and then this time we have now instructions added to it. So if anyone has any comment on maybe the best method for the scoring system, or we can certainly reevaluate that and make the changes for the next submission.
I just have a question. So if we look at this as an exercise that at some point we'll do, if we were to just look at 01 on the educational program and go all the way across, the goal would be, and tell me if I'm wrong, but if I'm explaining this, I'm trying my best as a teacher here, we would look for a 3, a 2, and a 1 in any of the 6 columns, correct? So as an individual, George Farrow is reading 01 and saying, where do I rate that as a merit? And what option do I think could best do that? So for every line, it's a 3, a 2, and a 1 based on feelings, knowledge, general schlock that we've done for the last 2 years.
That's right, yeah. If your matrix was completed, every box would be filled with a number.
So
A 3, a
so
2,
as
1,
opposed-
not every box though, because there's 6
It
options.
could, it
and I
could
only
be
have-
done either way.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess that's my question,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that we're exactly clear on the exercise when we do it.
So, I mean, in seeing number 1, in my opinion, all 4 new build options satisfy that are a 3, you know? So I could technically put a 3 in 4B, 5B, 6B, oh, I'm sorry, 8B and 9B on number 01.
So
It's
really,
that- yeah, so I guess my question is like, what's the list of directions, just so we're all clear?
where's the approach? Is it that approach?
Yeah.
Or is it that?
And I'm cool either way, I just want to,
Yeah.
I think everybody should know.
Yeah.
I agree. I think, you know, if you want to, you know, some of the discussions that we had in the working group on this was that You know, even if we felt, and in my opinion, there's more than several of these lines that the new bill is a 3 for all of them. But even that being the case, in somebody else's opinion, it may be different, and then they're gonna score things differently. So no matter what, everybody's gonna have their own. So even if let's say I go across and I go 1, in that first line I go 1, 1, 3, 3, 3, 3. Somebody else may do it slightly different, maybe not, but maybe on another line they'll be different.
So every box is filled with a 1 to 3 score based on what the individual scorer feels is most important. With a 3, least important with a 1.
That's how we.
That's perfect, yeah, that's no problem.
But if that's a different way.
I just don't know if we,
Yeah.
if this was like a 7th grade geography class back in the day, I don't know if like those directions need to like be specifically said.
That's a good point.
Put
Yeah.
out. That's all.
We need to be very, very clear that you examine each option and you examine a 1 through 3 scoring for each individual option.
That's right.
Right.
You know,
And every option will have a value in it.
yeah.
Just as Julie said, every box will have a number, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you guys.
Yeah.
For my age, it would have been easier just doing value 1 through 6. Pretty choice.
And this is a requirement for the PSR submission by the MSBA, but it isn't, the method in which you score it isn't defined. So we could, of course, manipulate it however it makes the most sense for the committee.
The amount of questions within each category, is that a requirement?
It's not, it's actually the committee is also informing what those categories are. So if there was a category separate from this matrix that should be added, we could certainly do that too.
Well, like looking at this, you know, number 4, include necessary resources for special education and student support. I would think that if we're doing this, and forgive me here because option 1 and option 7A I'm not as quote-unquote focused on at this moment, but the 4 new construction options should all be equal and should all be obtaining that level.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's the same, you know, allow for on-site parking during construction, because Mr. Galvin, how do we know that it allows for it? Yeah, there's room there.
Ultimately, there's 2 layers here. The first is this matrix. There may be 1, 2, 3, or all 4 that rise to the top as far as you know, the options, right? But based on all the committee's evaluation. Then after that, there'll be a single vote on what the actual preferred option is. So if 2 options rise to the top, it'll essentially be between those 2 options, what's the preferred option of the committee.
And I would say, I don't know if sweeping generalizations are what this matrix needs, because if I use the example of number 1, what is a sufficient 21st century educational environment for middle school students may be different to George Farrell than Donnie Essen. Maybe the same, maybe different. Maybe different than Jeff Simonak and I, because God knows we don't see eye to eye on a lot. So what I'm saying is that if we look at this as individuals, then we need every box scored based on what we have gathered, our collective gather.
It also could be viewed with that lens of, I know the 2 lingering decisions, of course, of great influence are the grade configuration and the auditorium considerations. I know this isn't meant to sort of single out those 2 conversations. You could view each question from a lens of the greater number of students that the project's actually impacting. So when you bring up the special education line item, it's sort of, now is that have an impact to the elementary school? Because now if 5th grade were in the middle school, does that sort of make modifications to that program? And so those are maybe lines of thinking that could help to inform where this all sort of hashes out. But again, subjective to the committee's decision.
And then when this is filled out, what's the goal? Like, what's the end return when you get all the total scores? What happens?
So there'll be 2 things. On the 19th, we're sending you the cost estimates, we're sending you the matrix, we're sending you the presentation, the draft presentation for the 24th. And on the 24th, be prepared to fill out the matrix. That's vote number one, or that's we'll tabulate, we'll work with John to tabulate each and every person's matrix into a single total. The second will be a vote. The committee on that night will take a vote as far as which option to move forward with. So there'll be two things going on the 24th.
When the committee takes that vote, will they be bound by what the matrix has for results? Or will it be all 6 options on the table for the committee to vote upon?
It's up to the committee, because from our perspective, you've got one layer, which is the matrix, and then you have the official vote. And you could take the matrix as the influence for the vote, or you could take another approach. The matrix, the intent is obviously to get everybody's initial and collective votes and impression on which 1, 2, 3 options rise to the top, right? And then the vote is taken as the final selection of the preferred option. And it could be consistent with the matrix. It might not be consistent with the matrix. It's just something that's really up to the committee which one is selected.
And we were hoping that if any member of the committee really wasn't sure which way to go yet, that this maybe could help, help decide in one way or the other. Maybe not, but it's at least a tool that sort of quantitatively lays out all of the factors.
If we're able to have our matrix filled out before that, John, you want us to email it to you so you can start the tabulation and hand in the official copy at the end? That way, if I'm done 3 days before, you can have it already in and you don't have to enter mine, but you still have my hard copy. Okay, be helpful.
So,
Can I just ask one more clarifying question? So then the extent of all of these totals would then be a discussion item, like before the final vote? So if John Stambrook brings up 7 compelling reasons that I think would make me change an option, we would have time for that?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's good.
also, when we do get to that vote, and Mr. Galvin has been wonderful in compiling some quote-unquote snapshots as to taxpayer impact. I would think that if we could have I don't know if any projects have recently gone out, or what perhaps our cost estimators, if they're going to anticipate a bond rating or an interest rate.
That's completely up to the district.
It's
not
something. Or we get that
That would be
information.
impossible.
Yeah.
Or we get the
Because it's going to
information.
be,
It's
a
a guess.
year or 2 ahead.
Right, it's a guess.
You can't even,
It's a
can't even
guesstimate.
think about what the interest rates were 4 months ago.
Yeah, I know.
Who would have guessed it would have almost tripled?
Yeah, be different. But do we want to
Because we won't bond this until when? 2027 maybe?
27? It's
You
going to
will
be in it.
you will
before
bond
bond
it in 2025
When it, okay.
when it starts
When
construction.
it starts construction.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're way far out
Yeah,
there.
in 2 years, it's impossible to even.
But I think that we should include the financial aspect to the best snapshot that we can for members to look at the same time.
I guess if we do that, I would also ask, do we include the financial snapshot based on precedent, which has happened in Whitman with building projects, i.e. the police station that was funded out of free cash, which greatly helped the anticipated tax rate. So I think we're looking at those things. Maybe we should look at all of them, because it is a snapshot and you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, it was,
The town had made the decision at that point to
Sure.
utilize free cash.
Sure.
well,
I don't think that that would be available
No, I just think it's an assumption. Like, if we're making an assumption on the bond rating, why couldn't we make the assumption that says the town will put in 1.5 per year out of free
I'm just
cash?
saying what the bond rating is right now.
Right, that's fine. But I'm saying, I just wonder if we're getting into gray areas and assumptions, let's make them based on past precedent.
I don't know that the town has those funds available to it.
And
Or
I didn't know
has
that-
anywhere close to
I didn't know
being
they
available.
did at the time.
I think on
But
the
it worked for 13
SOI,
years.
we indicated that we would be borrowing for the project.
I don't
That's what we
disagree.
told MSBA.
I don't disagree, but when you pay something back, you have the ability to pay it back as you see fit, correct?
That would be a town decision.
Correct.
That
I
would
just
be a
think if we're
town
getting into that.
I don't think that the town's in any position or forecast to be in any position
Yeah,
to
I
be able to have the money from free cash. Free cash funds capital needs.
Sure.
And I know, from other situations that I'm involved in the town, the capital needs are gonna be real tight this particular year.
Sure.
The monies aren't there.
But it's not this year yet, though.
One thing that was brought to my attention today was that, one thing we could do is look at the current debt that the town has, specifically for this building that ends in '27.
Right.
And the police that ends in 2031.
Yeah.
And what those payments are and how they fall off.
Yeah, I think that, yeah.
So that would be something that, thank you, Ms. Essen, for suggesting that to me. It's a good idea to look at that, and that was actually brought up by somebody at the last public forum about when this, when this.
Yeah. I just think if we're gonna have an issue, a forecast issue of finances, we should have everything that's been available, done, and how we proceed best.
And I'm just gonna, because I think it's gonna be important for the vote, we have those things there. I would ask you folks to present the financial implication of the building project if it had to come up to code, for this committee to see that as well. Because we haven't talked about that a lot, talked about where we're at. But if for some reason this committee passes something forward, the voter's going to have an option to vote on it, but to bring it up to code, there's going to be a certain amount of unfunded or unreimbursable monies to bring that building up to code. And I think the committee needs to know that as well.
And if I can piggyback on that for a second, I don't know that it's just to bring it up to code. There are some immediate repairs that would have to be done, and because those would trigger spending, now you've got to address everything. So it's not like you would be wanting to walk in there, what was it estimate, 56 million?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that you'd be walking in saying, let's spend $56 million. Well, wait, it only needs a new roof and some mold and this and that, but once you spend those dollars, then it triggers what you have to bring everything else up to code. And once you do that, that's where your 56 million comes into play.
Yeah.
So it would be more expensive to do nothing,
That's right.
or at least as expensive, and have an old building that's not energy efficient and is dilapidated and going to even require more. And I don't even know what you do to cancel school if you had some electrical issues because you can't get electrical parts. And what that panel would cost. So, yeah, that we need to have.
I thought Julie went to the slide that we have. This is the PDP version of the cost estimates. You've seen this before, just not in this consolidated view, because we eliminated the options that were eliminated by the committee based on the vote of the new construction options, add rental options, and base repair. So we are going to use this as a basis for the 24th of January, the presentation, and update this information based on current estimates and at preferred schematic.
Now that 56.75 million, does that even include portables or anything? Because obviously you couldn't do the work with children in the building.
There are a lot of things that are related to that and that are completely unforeseen, meaning that could be portables, depends on how you phase it. Could be something that, if you, as an example, if you decide to do the roof and windows, just as you should suggest, that likely is, highly likely, exceeds the 1/3 of the building's assessed value, which is a trigger. Fire suppression, full fire suppression, and then 33%, and then 30% is the ADA compliance, building and site. So you trigger just there a significant project, and then you're not even talking about electrical upgrades, mechanical upgrades, secure, or structural, seismic, etc.
So that would be obviously very extensive.
But yeah, to your point, Jeff, that will be included in the.
And as Troy said, this will be updated with, that's why those cost estimates that we're looking to get back January 17th will just be so critical to informing that January 24th decision. We wouldn't anticipate a grand sway in one direction of the current cost estimates, but it would just, as we said, continue to refine those numbers. And then in conjunction with the cost part of that evaluation matrix, just an update on the poll following the community forum that we held last Monday. The grade configuration has shifted slightly. We're up to 58% for the 5 through 8 compared to 42% for the 6 through 8. But again, our number of respondents was at 100, so still not a wide swath of the community, but a little bit of participation. And then auditorium, that also has garnered a lot of support, so we're at 62% in favor of an auditorium.
So do you mind if I just jump in here, because I did get results today at 4 o'clock of the sample that I sent out.
Okay.
And it's on the agenda, if I can just bump up, and since Julie's got it up here. So we
With the caveat that these went out to parents.
Can you say that? That's the parents. So we surveyed the preschool academy parents, 13 responded. Conley parents, 98 responded. Duval parents, 50 responded. The Whitman Middle School parents, 103 responded. And I don't have a breakdown of how they responded by building yet. This is rough right now. So 209 total responses, 4, 5 through 8, 45 or 44.5%. So they flipped it again, and 55.5% wanted 6 through 8. Again, 45.5 wanted 5 through 8. 90.9% wants an auditorium, and 9.1% did not. And for the next time, or for the committee, I'll send it out with more specifics. If it's Whitman Middle School parents, predominantly where they are, so the committee can see that breakdown. But it closed today at 2. I had it run now, and I wanted to share that.
Send it to high school parents as well?
I did not. It was current middle school parents. It was what we talked about at the forum. Middle school parents, Conley, Duval, and preschool.
And I don't know if you saw, there wasn't obviously too many respondents since the last forum.
That's right, yeah. I last
20-something.
updated this last night, and at that point there were 100 respondents.
There were 72 on the prior.
That's right, yeah. And then lastly, we just have some upcoming events, which would be anticipation of a 4th community forum in February, following what the committee votes as a preferred option would really be the target conversation of that community forum. And then again, our PSR submission, March 2nd.
All right, so.
Okay.
Anything else, or? That's pretty much that. Grade configuration and auditorium. I think we sort of already covered it. Anything else to bring up on that? Survey outreach, Jeff? Reimbursement, historical and estimated. Because there was a little confusion, so Mr. Bates, if you could.
I can speak to it. I saw it on the agenda. What I think this is in regards to is some confusion about what the actual reimbursement rate is. So I've been saying at these meetings that it's 57.74. That is the agreed on reimbursement rate for the feasibility
For the
study.
feasibility, not the
Right,
project.
but that's not the effective reimbursement rate. We won't know the effective reimbursement rate until the end of schematic design next year. That's when the MSBA analyzes the total project budget by way of their Form 3011. They take into account all of the ineligible versus eligible costs of the project. The effective reimbursement rate would be a reflection or would reflect ineligible costs. So it would be a different number than the 57.74. Keep in mind also they do factor in at that time incentive points for green building, for example, maintenance, things like that, which would then add on to it. But the effective number is something different, and it's something that's been brought up at the community forums. AI3 has done their best effort to look at doing an analysis of recent comparable projects, do a best guess of what the effective reimbursement rate might be at that time. But it's a best guess at this point. It's not something we know. I mean, of course, it's a lower number than 57.7. I hope that answers the confusion.
Historically, some of the projects that have just, been completed, or perhaps that there is a number, from my recollection, is somewhere in the mid to upper 40s.
I believe that was, the range, yes. Yep.
Every district's going to be
A
different.
little different.
It is.
Troy mentioned last meeting that, certain districts are going to qualify for higher, we're getting 57.74, whatever it is, the feasibility, and there are other districts that aren't getting the feasibility because they don't qualify the same way. Do I have that correct?
It's based on a number of factors, poverty rate, income rate, so.
No, keep going. I'm here, right? I'm here with you.
But yeah, you're right. Every town, every district is different. So.
I can just say that the last 5 projects that we've done, from the base rate to the actual rate is between 11 and 25% less than the base rate. So it's factored. It's an average, as John said. It's a best guess at this point. But with that historical data, we can at least define an approximate amount. That's why you can see in the town share, it's a range. It's not an exact number. It won't be an exact number until end of schematic design, when you sign a project scope and budget agreement with the MSBA.
Even though a lot of towns who had exact numbers last year are seeing totally different numbers this year when they're actually building or trying to build.
That is true, because the MSBA's amount of participation is fixed. It will not change. And
Construction costs are crazy.
anything
I know
above
at
and
least
beyond.
5 or 6 districts that are $20, $30 million over budget, who approved the money last year, had to go back to town meeting and get more money because what they bid it out and what they're actually getting because of what's happened in the last
That's right.
It's very true.
Yep.
18 months.
Thanks, John.
Troy, stay up there. I was sent a PowerPoint presentation, I don't know, a year and a half ago by
Okay.
one of our selectmen concerning green schools and being LEED certified, et cetera, and that there
Okay.
might be some funding for some additional net zero projects. I don't know if there's separate funding or if it all falls through MSBA and with the point system. And when you're giving us our cost estimates, how green of a building are you anticipating within those?
So I'll answer that a couple points. One is, as John mentioned, you get 2 reimbursement percentage points to satisfy the MSBA's, the LEED or Mass CHIPS certification. That's important because it's essentially, that is an easy achievable, attainable benchmark. Then you have utility rebates. Utility rebates it depends on which path you go down, and it's path 1, path 2. Net zero is path 1 through N-Grid as an example. And that will have a certain value to it based on the energy efficiency of the building. So it's undecided right now. We can't even define it because the project hasn't been defined. But during schematic design, once we have a single option, we'll engage the utility companies to identify and ask them to work with us as a team to identify what the town's reimbursement would be, or not reimbursement, rebates would be for the project.
And that's funding outside of MSBA. MSBA doesn't have anything to do with that.
And so,
Path 2?
path 2, you still get rebates, but it's a different path. It's a sustainable, energy efficient path. It's just not net zero energy. And so our feeling is to put the town's project and the building in the best energy efficient standpoint as far as operating costs, reducing the operating costs, as well as maximizing rebates, providing net zero energy as an educational tool for the students, and along with several other community features or factors. Net zero energy is the way to go. And so that's what we're anticipating as we move through the PSR process. Other grants or rebates, I'm not sure if they're possibly out there, but we haven't seen them yet.
Sure. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? Moving along, website information, I think we've already covered that with Mr. Bates. Any questions on that from anybody? Invoice approvals. Do we have invoices? All right, so it looks like we have 2 from AI3. Did everyone have an opportunity to look at them? And
You should have one for Colliers too.
Up there.
So there are three invoices totaling $45,363.56, and I would make a motion to pay those invoices.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
So Mr. Galvin on the motion, Mr. Essen on the second. Roll call vote. Mr. Essen?
Do we have debate on that?
Well, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? I'm sorry.
I vote yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Chris?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, unanimous.
I just want to make a comment if I can.
Oh, go right ahead.
I want to thank Mr. Stanbrook for putting these informational, the 3 sheets that he gave us. It's very easy to read and figure out what's going on. I know we get the invoices from Colliers, but the 3 pages of spreadsheets that Mr. Stanbrook gave us each week, each month, each meeting is really helpful. Really seeing what's going on. It's very helpful, especially for me who's a spreadsheet nerd. So thank you for the problem.
As always, we're in debt. Well, speaking of debt, just real quick, the high school debt is 400 and some odd thousand currently. Do you know off the top of your head? Does that sound right? The Whitman share?
Yes.
It's 400 and some odd thousand. So you're looking at a couple more years worth of payments, and that's gone. So if we could maybe have the detailed for our next meeting, that would be awesome. Sure. That's that. Anybody else have anything else that is on the agenda that we didn't cover, or any questions? Next meeting date is, I know Julie has it, I just like that word. January 24th, but on the 19th, we are going to be receiving the cost estimates and the matrix itself to use as a tool. Barring anything else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
What time on the 24th, we meet, 4:30?
4:30. If you look into that motion. Okay, Jeff? Just a second?
Yeah, nobody wants to go?
All right, we'll start this side. Brandon?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
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 Chris?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for coming. I wish everyone a great holiday.